Welcome to our podcast, Born Again Credit, where credit is restored, not just repaired. This is your host, JW, with Salvation's Call Ministries, and we'd like to thank you for joining us once again today. And today's topic is credit. What is credit? So first, to understand credit, we need to understand what a credit score is. Most of us here in America either have a credit score or have a roundabout knowledge of what a credit score is, but it's really just a numerical formula that's used to assign, that's assigned to your credit history. It's a score that's usually between the numbers of 300 and 850. Depending on what system you use. There's several. The average is around 695 here in America. However, there are many types of scores. The common one is the FICO 8. There are several different versions. Every version that comes out obviously is assigned a new number. I believe we're on 10 right now, but I know that the most common one is FICO 8. But there's also older and newer versions, and there are also industry-specific scores that creditors can purchase from the bureaus. The FICO formula often is used. Is a complicated formula based on about 35% payment history. The next category would be amount owed at 30%. The length of credit history would be about 15%, and new credit or the new accounts that you have would be about 10%. And the type of credit used, as in credit cards, more of your long-term debt such as car loans, that's about 10%. So the next thing we have to talk about to understand credit, now that we know what a credit score is exactly what is a credit report. Basically, it's what is contained. You're asking what is contained in a report. Everything involving your personal credit, such as car notes, leases, credit cards, bankruptcies, even services such as gym memberships and medical bills can oftentimes be placed on credit reports. Unfortunately, for a lot of services, they're only added when there's negative information. For some reason, they love that negative information, and it benefits the credit bureaus, which we'll talk about in a second. But the major sections include sections such as your personal and contact information. Another section will be accounts. You got a derogatory account section. You want to avoid those. Obviously, you got a collection section. You want to avoid those, although a lot of people have them. And public records such as bankruptcies, tax liens, things of that nature. Although tax liens and judgments should be something that shouldn't be seen anymore because it's not legal to be posting those, but oftentimes you do run into them. Those would be posted under the public records. So all those things are included on a credit report. And as you can imagine, some people's credit reports are much longer than others, depending on how long you've been alive and how much credit you have and how active you are in your credit life. But the next thing we're going to discuss is the credit bureaus. So what exactly is a credit bureau? Well, it's a company which collects information they can use to establish a credit rating on individuals and sell it back to creditors. So creditors would be your credit card companies, businesses, mortgage lenders, etc. The three major bureaus include TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Minor or more focused bureaus includes places like the LexisNexis, the Medical Information Bureau, or MIB as it's called, and many others like them. These bureaus are not government entities. They are private companies which do make profit. And then there's also the creditors. We discussed earlier. These are the companies who offer credit or financing to consumers. So anybody who offers a line of credit out there, and these include credit cards, mortgages, automobile financing, service companies, etc. Then there's different types of credit checks. So when you do what they call a soft pull, is a credit check that normally pre-qualifies you for various lines of credit. The creditor normally receives a credit score for a soft pull, but not a full report. And this doesn't affect your credit score normally. A soft pull should not impact your credit score. Although There's times when people will tell you they're just doing a soft pull, and sometimes they'll do what we're going to talk about next, which is a hard pull. And hard pulls normally affect credit by a couple of points, sometimes more, but provides the creditor with a full credit history from whatever bureaus they request from. In other words, because it has a negative impact on your credit sometimes, you want to limit the number of hard pulls. These hard pulls stay on your credit report for 2 years, and then eventually they'll just fall off. The soft pulls have no impact. You can have, several more soft pulls than hard pulls and it'll be fine. It won't impact you. But if some creditors see too many hard pulls, especially recently, it makes it look almost as if you're desperate for financing or some kind of money source. So they're kind of leery of that. But occasionally, you're going to have a hard pull on your credit. But for a person with limited credit history and no inquiries, a hard pull may even give a couple point boost. I know after I got done helping clean my wife's credit, she actually had a very I'd call it a skeleton credit report. There was nothing there. There was a couple accounts that were closed and just basically nothing. So we actually had to go out and actually have some hard inquiries put on the account. So I applied for a couple things for her, and that actually boosted her score quite a bit. And then once the account started hitting her credit report, it definitely did have an impact. But mostly all major lines of credit, once they're given out, will result in a hard pull. So even if they start with a soft pull, a lot of times it will turn into a hard pull. Most of your credit card companies and things of that nature, especially like your finger huts and your web banks, they'll do a soft pull maybe up front and then a hard pull as they offer you the line of credit and you accept that. But you got to ask yourself when you're thinking about credit, well, what's a good score and what's a bad score? Where do I fall in line? We talked about earlier how average score here in North America is 695, but if you live in the South like me, a lot of times the southern states, especially in the Southeast, struggle financially. Therefore, the credit a lot of times struggles. So different areas have different averages, but exceptional would be your 800 plus credit score. These guys have like less than a 1% delinquency risk rate of going seriously delinquent on their accounts. These are your 0% financiers. All those type things, the best of the best, that's what the 800s get. Now, you don't have to be a millionaire to get an 800. You just have to have the right balance of credit. It's all about the balance. So the very good score would be a 740 to 799. If you've got this score, you can get most of what an 800 plus can get as far as credit is concerned. 740 to 799 is still a really good score. It's got about a 2% delinquency risk rate. So it's honestly up there. Once you get in the upper 700s, you can really get a lot of things that the guys in the 800s can get. And it takes some time to get to 800. It's not an overnight process. So there's companies out there who are advertising getting you to 800 overnight within 30, 60, 90 days. Those guys, they're honestly, they're spinning your wheels, because there's nothing that you can do within that short period of time unless you're already close to that score to boost yourself up overnight like that. It just doesn't happen. But once you hit those 700s, those upper 700s, you've what I call, you're in the 700 club. So you've gotten at a good point. But a lot of people are going to fall in the good range, which is the 670 to 739. This has got about an 8% delinquency risk rate of being seriously delinquent, a little bit higher risk, but it's where your average people fall at. So you're in between 670 and 739. That's considered good. That's a good credit score. And there's honestly a lot of things you can qualify with that score as well. You're not handcuffed, if you will, with this score. This is a good score you can get financing with, but although there's room for improvement, a 739 is not perfect, and you can always go higher. So you always got to achieve for the next level higher. But some people are gonna identify with me here when I say the 580 to 669. That's the fair category. Maybe you've struggled to get above this category here, 580 to 669. That's where I spent most of my life, just to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't know a whole lot about credit and how it was balanced and what the formula was. Now that I understand that, I'm not chained to the 580 to 669 or the fair credit range. I can get above and beyond that. But that credit range comes with about a 28% risk of going seriously delinquent. That's rather way higher than the previous category that I explained to you at 8%. So that's a big jump of 20 more percent risk there for lenders. So who would you rather lend to? Would you rather lend to somebody in the fair category or the very good or exceptional? I think you know the answer to that, which is why the interest rates are higher in this range. This is where a lot of the bureaus, the credit bureaus, like for you to be, because it profits them. It puts them in a good position to profit. And we'll explain that at a later time and how they profit when you're in this credit range. You'll see a lot of individuals, they try to kick them down to that credit range when they're hovering right above it. But the below, way less than ideal, where you don't want to be at, is the poor, which is 580 and below. This comes with a 61% seriously delinquent risk rate, and as you can imagine, 61% is a huge risk. The odds are you're going to go delinquent at some point, and that's a 580 and below. And the reason is, one of the reasons is simply because you're paying a ton of interest and fees on your loans. You're just paying a ton of interest and fees on any credit that you get. You obviously don't know how to keep a credit balance. You probably don't know a whole lot about the score or even care about the score, because once you've gotten to this point, it's getting pretty low, and there's not a whole lot of knowledge there on how to correct that path. So that's what our purpose here is in the Born Again Credit Division of Salvation's Call Ministries. We're trying to get people above this. We're trying to get people to be broken from the bondage of poor credit, because it is a problem. It is bondage, because it does cost you money. It costs you thousands every year in the things that you finance, the vehicles, the homes, when you financed it with poor credit and you have to pay those higher interest rates. There's no need to feel ashamed or embarrassed, but to know that there's a better way. There's a way out. But what happens when you apply for credit? What happens is that the creditor normally gets a credit application done by you. They submit it to a software system or on the bank, the bureau's website. The bureau sends back your credit history or your score, maybe both, maybe just one. The creditor then makes the decision to offer credit or not based on what they see. The bureaus they use can be all three. They can be two of them, or they can even just be one. There's no right or wrong answer to that. Different companies like their different bureaus, even different regions of the country like their different bureaus. So say, for example, down here in the Southeast, I find that most of my reports actually came from Equifax. When I was trying to get credit, a lot of the local companies and your credit unions, they like to use Equifax here because it's the Southeast. It's a kind of a regional thing. Out west, they might go with Experian or TransUnion. It just depends on who they enjoy using, what they find is most effective, and probably most cost effective, is what I've seen. But what you want is a great score on all three. You want a great credit history on all three, so that score will start coming together and being the same on each credit report. People often assume that if they've got good credit on one report, they might have good credit on another. That's not true. I've had situations where my credit score was 100-point difference between one bureau and the next, and that's simply because somebody had a negative account, probably some incorrect information on one bureau, whereas the other bureau did not and had positive information. So You really, really have to manage your credit, because if you don't, who else will? Well, the credit bureaus will be happy to do it for you because they love to report inaccurate information, although it is illegal. So a few people are vouching for you on this end. You've got to do your homework. You've got to follow up on it. You've got to pray over these credit reports, correct what's wrong, or get somebody else who can do it for you or help you with that situation. And God will bless you with it. If you follow up on your stuff, you're responsible to your family. Just like He tells us we got to be responsible and work to make ends meet. We also have to be responsible to our families to make sure everything is in line on the credit end, on the legal end. All these things are our responsibility, and God expects us to keep up with those things, and He'll bless us in it. But I want you to repeat after me right now. I am a child of the one true God who is loving and faithful. He has plans to prosper and not harm me, to give me hope and a future. My credit will be restored and I will live in abundance. We're going to say this 3 times right here. I have good credit. I have good credit. I have good credit. When you wake up in the morning, I want you to tell yourself, I have good credit. Say it out loud. Speak it into existence right in the mirror. Tell yourself, I have good credit. At lunch, I want you to tell yourself, I have good credit. When you're leaving work in the evening or before you go to bed, or even both, I have good credit. I want you to speak this. I want you to speak what is to come, what is going to be, not just what you see in the present or in the past, because God can turn this around for you. You can do the action. He can put in the work behind it. And between your contribution and your faith and God's work into play through your hands, through the knowledge that He's given you, you can do this. But we'd like to thank you here at Salvation's Call Ministries for joining us. Please take a minute and check us out online. Even send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to join us as a partner and let us assist you in your credit restoration journey today. If you've seen this video on YouTube or heard the podcast on Spreaker, like it, subscribe to it. If you catch us on our website, salvationscall.org, you can find the credit repair section, or credit restoration section rather, there under one of the tabs. We have blogs, we have various different things. But, and most importantly, if you haven't given your life yet to Christ as your Lord and Savior, I'd encourage you above anything else that you hear on this podcast or any of our messages here to do that if you feel so led. And before you ever lay an eye on your credit report or any other issue in life that you have, seek Christ today and allow Him to restore your soul, to have a relationship with Him as your Savior. And John 14:6 tells us that Jesus Himself said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. And if you want to run the streets of heaven and not hell upon your departure of this world, my friend, make that decision with your heart, mind, and words today. And if you need assistance with that from us or with your credit situation, we'd be honored to help you with that. And until next time, thank you for joining us here on Born Again Credit, where credit is restored, not just repaired. If you want assistance with this, get in contact with us. Or if you want us to do all the legwork for you, get in contact with us. We'd love to help you. Thank you, and God bless.